Hey, what's up, everybody? Taking a little morning stroll, walking the dogs, but I wanted to reach out to you about reading the Gospels, okay? So I started reading through Matthew, like I encouraged all you guys to do. And if you're not caught up on the 5 key New Year's resolutions, if you want to call them that, I didn't call them that, 5 keys to a good new year, I think is what I called them, was based on Acts 2. And the 5 elements that I believe were crucial in that chapter for the disciples and the growth of the church. So you had honoring the Lord's Day, you had the reading of the Word, prayer, an attitude of giving, and lastly, fellowship. So one of the main things I challenged you guys on Sunday to do was to be in the Word this year, but primarily in the Gospels, to just really detach from all the other stuff. I don't even want to say detach, because you can still read other stuff. You can still even read other books of the Bible. You can still read other books that people write. But I mean, just kind of detach from like all that other stuff that, you know, we spend so much time hearing about, reading about. Today's a big day politically that you're going to read a lot of articles about, or people are going to send you articles about. You know, put that stuff aside. It's all right if you read it, but start your day off in the Word. Get in the Gospels. I was reading through the Gospel of Matthew yesterday, and I just wanted to kind of point out a few highlights of some things I saw. You know, chapter 1 starts off with this long genealogy. And a lot of times the new believers, when I tell them to start reading the Bible, I say, you know, start in the Gospels, work your way through. You could skip the first chapter because, you know, it's just a list of names that aren't going to mean anything to you. And that is true, right? The new believer has no understanding, or say a non-believer that I tell to read the scripture to, that they're not going to read through that first chapter and be wowed by the Bible and want to keep reading. So that's why a lot of times I tell them to skip and get into the text. But that genealogy is important. It's not put there, you know, for a reason, or they took it out if it wasn't important. So I wanted to point out that, you know, even though I sometimes say that to people, that genealogy is super important, not only because it traces Christ's lineage, but I want to just highlight how oftentimes people will try to compare religions and just say, you know, they're all the same, and, you know, it's just like, it's about doing good to people, and everybody just makes up God to try to suit their own needs. But the reality here is, if you look at myths and pagan religions and other religions of the world, they don't give you long, boring genealogies, right? They just give you these grand stories about these grand deities doing grand or even mischievous things sometimes in paganism. But they're always, you know, they're always Hollywood-style movies. They're always written with a plot and a theme and a climax, and they're stories that they want you to like, they want you to read, they want you to be entertained by, because they're trying to set, you know, the value or the narrative that they're trying to set. You know, Hermes will take you to the underworld or whatever it may be, but they're always very grand, elaborate stories. The Gospels aren't like that. The Gospels don't just give you a Hollywood movie. What the Gospels are doing are laying out for you reality. They're laying out for you truth, and they're laying out for you history. Now, most of your guys' days, most of history isn't grand and exciting, right? If you ever looked at your day and watched it, it's not just like a Hollywood movie. But if you told me honestly what you did, it perhaps, you know, would be a little boring to watch. But it would be the truth. And so in the scripture, in that genealogy there, right, it's put there for a reason, to trace Christ's lineage. It shows that his lineage comes from the proper line of David, that Christ is the proper king in David's lineage. But they wouldn't be able to write that unless it were true. They wouldn't even attempt to write that if it weren't true, because people would say, wait a minute, That list ain't true. We're Hebrews. We follow lines and genealogies, and that ain't true. But it is true, and that's why they wrote it. You don't see the line of Zeus in a long list, and Zeus came from him and there and her, and he comes and he fulfills this prophecy. No, because it's just made up. But with Christ, it's not just made up. This is history. This is what the one true God had designed and prepared for humanity to bring about in time, in space, in reality. And all these other religions are ultimately a wannabe, and they try to overdo, and they try to give you either a better, more entertaining narrative, or with many Eastern religions, a simpler narrative. You don't have to read all that. You don't have to believe all that. Just find your inner peace. Just do some yoga and stretch out and maybe, get high and just believe in the reality of the spirits and powers all around you and God's all around you. So they either make it elaborate and grand, or they just simplify it to where a first grader could be a practitioner of their religion in a minute after explaining things to you, and just give you a worldview, and you go about your life, be like, man, God's everywhere. And the scripture is not like that. The scripture is complex. The scripture is deep. It's giving you not only deep theological concepts, it's giving you genealogies you have to go study, and lines you have to understand, and why is this in here? And it challenges you to grow, and you're always going to be growing in that reality, in that truth, in that divine his story or history that God is laying out, that oftentimes we don't see. We look around and maybe like, this can't be God's history going on, all this craziness. But we got to remember, although there's craziness around us, God's history is the history of his people. As I've heard it said recently, a great quote, his blood-bought trophies. Think about that. God sent his son to the cross to die for us, to purchase us back from sin and death and Satan. And we are now his blood-bought trophies to glorify him, to live for him. And so I pray we would get to know him more and more through the reading of the word this year. And start in Matthew if you haven't already. Get into it, ask some questions. You can put them on here as we do these videos. Text them to me, put them on Facebook, it doesn't matter. But we'll see you guys soon. Just some quick thoughts this morning, and I'll share a few more tomorrow. God bless.